Hello, everybody. First, I would like to welcome you all. It's really nice to see such a big crowd today. And I hope we can manage to have a really interesting evening. I also would like to welcome you on behalf of Anne, of course. And also, I think today is always a special day because once in a month, you probably know, we're talking about Eindhoven, we're talking about how this is gonna transform or how it should grow, how it should develop within the future. And in the previous editions, we always had people who had a little bit more of a clear professional link to how to shape the city. But today we have Piet Hein Eek. And I don't know if I need to introduce a lot about who he is, and I think he's going to manage himself really well, and you all probably know a bit. But what I think is really interesting this evening is that you are also somebody who really helped shaping Eindhoven. And, well, you have also a very big presence within the Slijp area, but also within other choices that we have been making here in the city. So I'm actually really curious about what you're going to tell, because this is not something you're normally speaking about. But yeah, I hope that you're going to have a really nice evening together with us. After Piet's talk, there's all the time in the world to ask questions. So please sit on it a little bit. I will make sure that afterwards I will be running around to make sure that we can have a really nice conversation and answer all the questions that you have. So Piet, the whole, oh yeah, sorry, we're gonna wait a moment. Perfect reminder, if anybody else has a phone, please check that it's off. That makes it a little bit more intimate in that sense. Great, then Piet, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. First, I'd like to give my apologies in advance, because I think this is not my subject, and it will be sometimes a little bit rude for people here, or at least in Eindhoven, because it's all like small stories about what I experienced in the past, and I hope it will sort of provide food for thoughts afterwards. And but it's not my intention to insult people. That's it's never the intention. But sometimes it's just a story where somebody is not acting like you would like to. And the first thing, which is not negative, or the main thing actually, because Anne said no, Anne and I talked about what I was going to talk about, and then I said, well, I never talked about this subject, and my final comment was, actually, it's always the same with me. And I think we spoke also. But so it will be the same, but with different stories. So if people already listened to me previously, they will recognize that it's all about coincidence. So I don't believe that we're as good as we think we are as human beings. So almost everything I touch is about that we think something, and it's not like that. So that's, but it's my introduction for every speech or tour or anything else. So the first thing is that I'm here. I wouldn't have been here if we wouldn't have the academy leaving for Roermond. Everybody knows the idea of killing the academy and the city in one big blow. And we came together among us with Anne and Kiki and Joost and many others, and we sort of thought, okay, this is not going to happen. And instead of organize something from the government or being paid or anything else, it just happened. And after we succeeded together, actually with the government, with the city government, where everybody wanted the academy to stay, but it wasn't that clear when we started. Anne asked me, do you want to speak, come to the Kazan? I said, okay, yeah, we did this together, okay, we do this together also. So noblesse oblige. So this is the reason why I'm here, because otherwise I wouldn't have said yes. But that's how life goes. So I start with some stories The first is, I think it was still in Gelderop, so it was more than 14 years ago. Sikkens, I don't know who knows Sikkens. It's a big paint factory, one of the biggest. Now it's AkzoNobel, I think, or something. And he's part of it. They asked me to write a piece about Eindhoven. And I said, yes, I want, but am I free to write what I want? They said, yes, you can write what you want. I said, okay, great. So I made a story about Eindhoven, and it was more or less that Eindhoven is one of the most ugliest cities in the world, and that it was caused by corruption. So you had Philips, who was the owner of the city. The mayor didn't have anything to say, and they went to the Treeswijkhoeve or the Karpendonksehoeve or some other hoeves, and the architects were there, and Philips was there, and there were people who were building. So everything was in one hand, and everybody knew each other, and then they decided, okay, you are going to build that building, and you are allowed to build that building. So everything was like prestigious, like big buildings, they are ugly. So this is a small version of the original story. So I said, we need a bulldozer of, let's say, 40 meters wide, 50, and go around the ring and demolish everything there, because it's actually total shit. And then we have a new situation, and we can build beautiful stuff with architects who are better, and with a government who is not corrupt, and with a company who is not predicting or saying what the architect should do. So I thought this is a good solution for Eindhoven. It's still actually quite a good solution, although there are some places where they build better. And afterwards they found out that the old heritage of Philips is beautiful, and that was probably the first architectural move in Eindhoven, which is sort of a nice change to comparing with the past. So then we have, so it's all anecdotes, so small stories. Then we have a story about our opening of our company. So we opened the company, and I thought it's a Philips building, and I'm not going to tell the whole story, but it was like crazy. And then I needed furniture to sell in our store, because we started a store, never had a store, so I didn't know how it would work. And I thought, I'm not going to buy or design furniture for the store, because then it's like an official store. So I thought I'd take old industrial furniture as if it is from Philips, as if we found it in the building, but the building was empty. So we started buying a lot at that time, and nothing actually sold well except the furniture. So we had a very good start with the store, just because I wanted to have a Philips interior in our place. And it will get a clue in the end, so don't worry. And then I often read difficult books. One of my favorite book is from Daniel Kahneman, Ons Feilbaar Denken, Thinking Fast and Slow. And it's about that he's very cynical about mankind. So I recognized myself in what he writes, and I thought, he writes what I feel. So you have a conversation, you talk with somebody, and then you leave, and then somebody does something totally different from what you discussed. And it's all the time like that. And if they do what you ask, it's like sort of a coincidence. So I thought you need to be sort of like skeptical or at least cynical, or I don't know, about us. So this book is only about that. He survived the Second World War, and he just doesn't believe that people are as rational, as well-thinking as we all think we are. And one of his examples, and I don't know if the conclusion is in the book, is that he goes back to because he's from Israel in the end, so he went to Israel after the World War, and he's a psychologist in America, and they ask him to do a lecture. And his lecture is about if you treat people well, they perform better. So it was for like high officers and so on, like the highest in the ranking in the Israeli army. And then, so he says, yeah, well, it's for sure that people perform better if they are in a nice environment and better treated. And then a colonel says, a very high officer says, no, in my experience, it's the chapter is called regression to the average. That's the name of the chapter. And the author says, in my experience, if the flyer, because he was a flight commander, if they come back and once did a really bad job, I just kick the hell out of him, and next time he does better. So Kahneman thinks, okay, how can I explain this guy that it's not like that? So he puts a cross on the floor and asks 10 guys to throw a coin 5 times. And the worst is better after the second, you know. So the best is throwing worse the second. So in the end, it sort of gets to the average. So they're not even trained to throw coins. But in the end, if somebody performs very bad, he normally performs better next time because it was very bad. So it's like statistics. So in the end, I found it really, really interesting that this colonel might die in the end of his life, thinking he did all his life the best, but in the end, he took care that the average was lower because all the flyers are performing less when you're treating them bad. But he can think, because each time when he was angry at one of the guys, next time he performs better, so he's right. So I think this is a small story about mankind, and where we're in actually all the time. And then you have Richard Florida, which is more about cities. It's a very well-known book. I think I read it like 10 years ago, The Rise and Fall of Creative Class. And the interesting thing is that he was with a researcher about lesbians and so on in a city. And he himself was looking at creativity in the city. And then they found out that their data were exactly the same. And they found out that if a city grows, the worst area is the cheapest. The creative people and the people who are lesbian and different mindset and different thinking are going to that area. And in the end, this area will become very expensive. And then the lawyers go there and other people with money. So this system is like, they researched it, and it is like always like that. In every city, it's the same story. It feels like coincidence, but it's like always the same. So it's not coincidence. It's also quite logic in the end. So it's a nice story about Eindhoven, actually. And then I bought a building in 2010 because Philips left. I think they left in 2000, something like that, around 2000. Who knows when Philips left? Exactly. To the Breitner Toren in Amsterdam, because you can't have success in Eindhoven with a big international company. No? Okay. Well, somewhere around 2000 they left. And I know everybody was panicking at that time. Yeah, specifically the government, because they lost the husband in their marriage. You know, there was nobody who was going to tell them what to do and how to do it, and also not paying. So that would be a disaster. And all the buildings were partly already abandoned because production in Europe was almost impossible. And so there was actually a feeling of that Eindhoven would have to find a new life. And instead of that, it was not a new life, it was what they left was space and a lot of knowledge and a lot of companies who were actually well equipped, much better than Philips. You can say now, that's nice. And actually I always thought that ASML was abandoned by Philips, but for the ones who read the book Focus, actually Philips helped them until the end. So that's a much better story. And but in the end, of course, the emptiness which was left by Philips has been a blessing for Eindhoven, both for the government, both for the companies, both for the space, and also intellectual. I think the necessity to rethink your future and also the knowledge which was still there, for me, we just talked about it. For me, if there was a question, why did you stay? So I wanted to make, design, produce, and sell my own products. And my wife didn't want to leave for Edam, near Amsterdam, where I came from. So I started here. And after 2 years, she said, maybe I want to go to Amsterdam. I said, no, I'm not going to Amsterdam anymore. Because I have a space, and I have people working for me. And in Amsterdam, people don't like to work, they like to talk. So, and I need people who make my products, not talk about it. And then I go to Amsterdam to sell it. So that was my thought. And I think still this is the nice mix in Eindhoven of all kind of qualities. It's working, but very high end, like with a lot of people who are maybe even more clever than the ones who talk in Amsterdam, but they actually are involved in making stuff. So it's a different economy, a different mindset, but it was necessary, I think, in the end for Philips to leave and to actually provide space for all those people who are talented and well equipped, the whole environment. So then this is my critical thing. So in Eindhoven we have Brainport and DDF, who organizes the Dutch Design Week, and Brainport is, I don't know where they started, but they all start somewhere. And then in every city, in our society, we start sort of financing something which is already successful. And then after a while we say, you see, it's quite successful. And that's because we financed it. And I dare to say, because I know a lot of people who work for Brainport and worked for Brainport, I wouldn't hire them for myself, for my company, for what they do over there. I don't say it's bad. Oh, I have one story extra, actually. But I doubt if at least I doubt if the output of those organizations is as big as we think, because we're in a situation that the economy in Eindhoven is growing anyhow, because we have like a natural process from Philips leaving this area and many companies filling the gaps, among which ASML, which is the biggest, it's one of the most important and biggest companies in the world. So in the end, we're in a natural process, and we think we sort of help it by spending a lot of money, but I doubt if everything is well spent. You know, if it's if the investment is what we should do. So that's my question, and that's because I question everything. That's and then if you look at what happened to me when I bought the building, is that we didn't get money. Everybody thinks we were subsidized by the government, but we didn't get 1 penny. But we did get a lot of help. So they provided us with all ambtenaren, like official help. So they were not stopping us. And normally if you work on a big project, the government is a pain in the ass. And what they did in our case was saying to the city, to the employees of the city, don't go there because you might see something which is not allowed, and then you have to do something. So if you don't go there, you don't have a problem. So the first 5 years we didn't have any employee from the government because they didn't want to cause problems. It's a very clever way of giving space to a company which you want, from which you want to be a healthy company. So in the end, I think it's positive for everybody. And then we come back to ASML again. So now we have a city which is full, completely packed. You know, there's no space anymore. Every building which is sold for 3-4 times the price, which was like, if you compare it to 10, 15 years ago. There's even a lack of space, both for domestic purposes as for working. And so we don't have this natural moment anymore that there is space for everybody and that we can grow. So all of a sudden, it's not a coincidence when it goes well, but we need to be more thoughtful, and we need to put money in the direction we want. And then I think if you think about where to put money in general, it should be, I looked for the word social on encyclopedia, and it's for the benefit of the society. So you don't need a lot of other words which are fashionable now. So like inclusive, you don't need it because it's social. You know, so we could also go back to a simple word which includes everything, social, and then we get rid of the fashionable things. And I think if you think about what a government should do, is take care of the people who are less rich, less equipped, having less chances, and make also sure and provide a nice space for those who have. So we first start with the ones who don't have, in my opinion. And so for me, if you look at the government now, they have to take the money which they get from high mortgages and so, you know, if you sell something you have to pay, the taxes are higher, and then you have to move this from the like me, I pay a lot, and then you use that money to help the people who need it and to help to create space for those people who create quality for the society, which is more or less also creative people, like the Richard Florida example. You know, the lawyers like to live in the neighborhood where the horseware and afterwards the designers and the artists and the lesbians and everybody who likes to live there, then they are moved out. But if it's full, you have to take care of this process deliberately. So that's my story about the city.
I have some questions. Because now you told us why you didn't leave. But why did you came in the first place?
I studied here.
And why Eindhoven?
Yeah, it's a long story. No, I wanted to be an architect originally, or I wanted to study economies because I wanted to have my own company. So I thought either economy, making furniture, or designing furniture. And actually, I'm very good in economics. I can calculate quite well. And I was like horrible. So it was a good choice. So that I was actually I was not selected for the academy in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I was on the Reservebank. Yeah. And then I was allowed to come. And I was a very bad student.
Yeah, but
I'm still not that good.
I'm not saying anything about that, but no. But was it then because of the school? Was it because of the atmosphere? Was it because of the combination that the education could offer you? What was it that brought you to Eindhoven? Because
well, the academy was at that time it was in between, in my opinion, and I think it was at that time, it was between the university, like the technical university, and art academy. And I was technically, so my brains are quite like on the technical side. Yeah. So I thought I don't need that part to develop, or at least it develops by itself. But the creative part, so I thought I'd take something in the middle. At that time, it was a very, very specific position of the academy. Now it's more, I think now it's closer to the art academies. But at that time, they were exactly in between.
I think I also recognize that position between tech and creativity in how you still look at Eindhoven right now. Is that true? Is there still like this dynamic of here are people that want to do something that are actually really smart, but also are there to really do it themselves and not only speak about it? Do you see a similarity there between the kind of the mindset that's still here in the city?
I think Philips left a very, 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 very special environment. So if you want to, I always made a joke, I still make it, so I will make it now. So if it's nice weather in the summer and you have a company in Amsterdam, your employees are lying in the Vondelpark, you know, like enjoying the sun. But I want to make cupboards, and I want also when it's warm. So this joke I make my whole life. And I think that's the very specific combination here is that there's a lot of production here, but also high-end. Mm-hmm. And so when I graduated, Germany was also about to fall because the Chinese were going to take over. Maybe it will happen now. But actually, Germany grew afterwards tremendously in terms of their technology and their production. But it was more high-end. And I think Eindhoven, or the north of Brabant, or is it south of Brabant? South. At least this area, better, is like similar like that. It's a very specific position where there is a potential of quality, with the will to also do something and to produce and then on a level which is extreme. So, and if you're a designer and you want to make things, you need like materials, you need like technique, you need knowledge, you need people to help you. So it's like heaven.
Yeah.
And now the space is not there anymore, but the society, the people together, they actually, that's still the same. So it's very important to create space for those people.
And should I interpret your story in that we actually should have wished for ASML to leave past spring? No. So they need to stay. So they don't need to leave.
No, but
like
they are
Philips
not
leave to
involved
create
like
space.
Philips was. You know, Philips built Eindhoven, but ASML, I think they have like a normal relationship with the government. And of course they negotiate, but it's not that they are sitting on the same chair.
Yeah, yeah. But then if we have a city where there is a little amount of space still available, and like you said, now we have to make very conscious choices on where we make space for and where we put our money in. What are then for you, what is for you a good baseline, or what are the values that we really should consider?
Well, I give an example how I think. Apart from the academy, because that's behind us, and I think it's solved more or less like we wanted. But now Stroomhuisje is burned, you know, like everybody knows Stroomhuisje. It's burned. And everybody wants to help, and I say, yeah, you want to help, but you can't help because it's gone. You can help the people perhaps with what they lost, but the building is gone. And I know André is a good friend of mine. And I said, well, what you have to, because now they asked him to do a proposal. I said, you have to propose that you make a huge building, like really high, so which was not supposed to be there. So it's a lot of money involved, so you get enormous amounts of money because you're going to rent all the spaces on top of it. And the first 4 floors are for you, for free, because they gain money. So but then the government should think, okay, we change our plans because we're allowed to. This is our job. We have a new situation, and we're going to build the highest skyscraper there with providing a lot of money and space. So not too high because then it becomes more expensive, but the best value for money, and then you rent it and you create a much better place than before, and it doesn't cost anything. But then you need the government, and that's what I mean. If you facilitate and not pay, the government can facilitate, can change rules, because that's their job. And if they can explain that it's better for the society, they can provide easily space for creative people. But then you first have to say, this is the start, and then we just make 4 layers extra, and the other layers are for people we want, for initiatives we want to, and then you don't have to pay, because the people above pay for what you want. And that's something, when we talked about the academy, this was the thing. They wanted to cut the problems for the students and for the academy itself. And I said, you have to put it together, because the students, they want to pay rent, and they provide the money for the academy. So if you cut it, you lose the tool.
So in that sense, it's the same as also the municipality acted in your case just by saying, don't go there. That's in that sense
brilliant.
Also like...
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Because if you have to pay for all those shit, which I'm in now, then it costs fortunes. So if the government leaves you alone, it's like, I don't know, at the moment it's more than 100, 200,000 euros a year, which I have to pay because they come and check me.
Yeah. So that also means that you have to establish also a relationship of trust within the city, and also decide, okay, what are we willing to be flexible about to make something grow within an environment that's really under pressure.
But trust is the opposite of our political and social thinking at this moment. Yeah. And that's one of the biggest problems we have. A lack of trust, and always trying to have like an extra rule to be sure that it's done. And you know, if you give money, there are 10 people taking care of if the money is spent well, which is more expensive than just leave it.
Yeah, yeah. And one more question for me, then I'm going. But you say, okay, so the focus should be on the people that don't necessarily can take care of themselves right now, or aren't in the best position. Personally, I think you also provided something for a group that doesn't have the best perspective by placing yourself where you are, next to the Drensdorp, but also making a space that creates a bit of wonder for people who just want to walk around and not even spend something but see something. How do you see that role of creating a beautiful surrounding, giving a form of accessibility, and how should designers take that role as well? Because I think this is a municipality job, but also the companies, but also designers. We can do also something like this. How do you look at that?
That's a difficult. I don't believe that designers are in charge of this subject, although it's except when it's your profession. Yeah. But I do think in processes we're able to think about that you have an alternative, that you can do it differently. So I always say one of the forgotten areas where designers are, you know, when I studied, people thought you study to make something beautiful. That's a designer. Like very slim, you know, almost nothing.
Yes.
But it also has to be affordable. It has to be on transport. It has to fit in the production facilities. It has to fit in the logistics. So in the end, if you fail somewhere, the product fails. So in the end, you're a generalist. But if you look at companies in general, they always have like either technical or financial people in the board, and not often creative people. And I think every big company should have at least one creative person in the board to say, I don't think so, I think it's like this. And by only questioning it, everybody will have the benefit. And the same thing is for the government. Because everybody assumes that if you give money like this, it grows, so it's because of the money. So you need somebody to think differently and say, but if we wouldn't have spent it, would this have happened or not? Like the growth of Eindhoven, I think is the big growth is because Philips left and the companies came, and in the end that's the real thing. It's not because the government spent money well or not, it's just like, it's coincidence, it happens, I don't know how to call it. But I think that question and the role of a creative person is much wider than only creating products or even services. It's about thinking about processes. That's my personal thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone? Yes.
Yeah, I actually have two questions, not just one. The first one is, you mentioned that the Design Academy is moving out of Eindhoven. Do you have any idea why? Is it like Bauhaus in the 30s, or are there like different reasons to that? And the second question was related to like high-end in Eindhoven. What exactly you meant by that?
The second question I didn't understand.
You mentioned that Eindhoven is good at creating high-end things. What exactly do you mean by high-end?
Okay, yeah. So it's not the things, but
to
it's...
be very quick, the academy is not moving, so we can skip immediately to the second one. Yeah.
No, I thought he asked why they wanted to move. That's because you know they're not going to move. Okay, well, that's good to hear. So that's solved. It's a long story, so...
Eindhoven is good in making high-end things. Why do you?
No. I don't know if I said it literally like that, but what I meant is that the economy of Eindhoven is high-end orientated. So the people, the engineers. So if you compare it to production elsewhere, it's the products with a lot of knowledge, with high technology. So if you put the list like ASML, you know, it's the best. But there are a few companies like that, but we also have production facilities, and everything is if you compare it worldwide, it's like Germany and Eindhoven area or Brabant.
So we're really specialized in what's happening here.
I think so. It's like
Yeah, and why do you think that is? Why?
because of Philips. It's a wonderful heritage. They started here like that, making things with wonderful ideas. Today I had a marketer from Philips, and it was a long conversation because I said, Philips has one problem. They always, how do you call it? Wat is reclame maken? Advertised with what they were not good at. So the only thing what you should do is to say where you're good at, and they have like decades making like Sense and Sensibility or something, and then all their products were not friendly for use, and then they said let's make things better, and they never had the first on the list of the consumentable. So I would say first make the top of the list, and they say we make things better. But but they did. Philips has a wonderful character and a wonderful quality. They are one of the most technical companies in the world, and I don't know if it's still like that, but they have a huge amount of patents. So they could easily advertise with what they're good at.
Yeah.
It's like Niki Lauda sitting in the camera with his burnt ear instead of his good ear. You know, it's stupid.
Are there any more questions? Yeah.
I have a slightly more personal question coming from a person that has graduated design and who also wants to do stuff the way I like them because I think it would work and stuff. I feel like currently in an environment, you mentioned Philips leaving and that creating a lot of opportunity, I guess, for new stuff to come in and take presence. What I feel like I face as a challenge currently is everything is so saturated, everything feels super set, and the city feels super saturated. And I feel like the point of entry is a bit higher to manufacture stuff, especially because everything has moved out to China and stuff. What would you recommend me, from your perspective, to get an entry into this today?
To the city. Into the city.
Into being a designer that makes.
Yeah, but this is a little bit what I just mentioned. That we're at the moment. So when I started, it was everything possible, no rules. Actually, with my father-in-law, he said, "In my time, we were free, and you have a lot of rules, but it's not better or worse." So I think we're in the same situation because, in the end, it repeats. But I think Eindhoven has a very important task to create space for you and others. And I think this is a good investment, better than many other investments. That's the thing I wanted to say. And you facilitate. So I know a lot of designers who are willing to pay. They can pay like a normal amount of money for even for the Eindhoven prices. They want to buy a building and it's almost impossible. So they are even able to pay the price which is normal now for Eindhoven, and the government is not able to provide them space. And I think that's totally stupid. You should even be able to give people a space who are not so rich but they're not even able to create space for the people who are able to pay. So it's really like a fundamental problem.
Yeah, and it's yeah.
Piet, you as a creative person, where do you see opportunities for this space?
For Eindhoven.
Yeah, where do you see, because you say you put it now to the government, you should do something, but you also said there should be creative persons in boards. You as a creative person, how do you see this? Where do you see opportunities for those spaces?
Oh, they're going to rebuild Vellenoord, so on the other side of the station, with a huge amount of new buildings and old buildings, among which the Stroomhuisje. I think if you just use the rules you have to provide quality where you want it, and you give a commission, or you call it a permit, to somebody who wants to spend money. So you say we make it 20% bigger, and the 80% pays for the 20%. So then it's solved. You just say, okay, we need 20% more. So, yeah, I don't know how to do it. I don't mind if it's general, but it's totally stupid to make huge buildings there with only people living. You know, and that's the focus. If you think about the process, if you take S, you know, so which is totally developed from the idea that you first get people in to live, and then the plinth, the companies on the plinth, they want to pay. So in the end, the people lived there and there was no plinth. And I thought, if you give it away or you rent it for very low prices and you give people either the possibility to buy it in the future for a decent price, then they start making their living. They have a reason to invest there, and then you have all of a sudden, when you open up, everything is there. And there's one story I didn't tell about the Famegebouw. Who's fan of the Famegebouw, where half of it is now Albert Heijn? The food court. So I had almost a quarrel with Staf Depla. Nice guy. But so I didn't know he was involved in the Famegebouw. So I started talking about the Famegebouw. I said, yes, it's horrible. I said, there's invested like millions, and with a lot of glass, and then you don't see anything inside. You don't want to go inside, and there's a food court there. And the people who are there, they sell nuts, and they have to pay this extremely expensive renovation of the building. So and you can't make money with nuts like that. So the best thing is to just throw it away and get rid of all the glass and just make it open and let people make their own. If they want to close, they make it close. And I said, I think it's horrible. It's the worst investment ever. Normally, it's like you pay something and then it's a little bit less. But this was negative money. So everything they did made it worse than it was. So if they would have done nothing and just opened up, it would be a much bigger success than it is now. So every penny is bad spent. That's almost impossible. Eh? So then you really have to make big mistakes.
Is it true that I'm now hearing actually two recommendations? One is looking at the total and not zooming in only on a space for creatives, but really looking at the complete picture and then figuring out how behind the scenes you can organize it in such a way that there is actually space for creatives. And on the other hand, don't fill in everything you think you need to organize.
Don't spend money, facilitate.
Yeah.
Because then, he was angry because he was involved. And he said, we had a committee and we traveled all around the world to all the food courts. I said, I've seen 10, 20 food courts in my life. And I didn't get money for it. But I could have told you that in Wenen they have a food court where there's 2 meters ice in the winter. And it works perfect, and they have their own space, and they don't have to pay anything because nobody invested. You know, everywhere where you come, so they just make like as if they can make it, but in the end, you need an entrepreneur who sells nuts and who can decide how much he will gain with the nuts, and not like, okay, you have to pay this per square meter because that's normal. So that's the problem is that they have to get out of the investment chair and to facilitate.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier Philips. It's completely unrelated to your topic, but I'm coming from a business background, by the way, so I'm talking from that context. Yeah, the thing that you mentioned about the marketing is true. The marketing of it was an absolute disaster, almost a case study. Historically, Philips' marketing has been terrible. But I know that is also true for 90% or more for all of the Dutch companies that at least I encountered. Like their marketing is either non-existent or it's just so bad that
it's more companies like that.
Yeah, almost all of them. I can't think of a single Dutch company that does good marketing. Now for my question is, how would you imagine that marketing to look like and feel like for it to actually be better or at least effective?
In general.
Or maybe then, if we could apply it on Eindhoven, what should the marketing of Eindhoven be? So that we use a case.
But maybe it's the same. It's the same answer. It's the Niki Lauda answer. But also what I talked about, what I said about Philips. But in general, marketing is something which is connected to the company. So if you do city marketing, you're quite clever if you promote where you're good at. And it sounds strange because it's so logic, but from the 70s or 80s until 2010, the departments of marketing were like totally not connected to the company itself. So they actually were not promoting anything what the companies were making, because they were just thinking, yeah, people want to have, at this moment it's the same actually, and that's durability. So I had today the conversation about it, and I said, well, if you do that, you have to take care that the best razor is Philips. And then you can say, we make the best razor. So the same story as and I said, yeah, but we have. I said, but you have to be very sure that you make the best razors. It's a razor, right? Yeah. So, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. You don't promote yourself if you say you make the best and you don't make the best. But it's all the time like that with advertising, is that it's not related or not connected to the company. I don't know, did we talk about generalists? We talked about generalists. We're coming from a time from the Industrial Revolution until 2010, that we believed that specialists would offer the solution. So by cutting processes in small pieces, we would solve a lot of problems. And since 2010, all of a sudden we found out that the hospital doesn't work without a general manager who understands everything and only like specialists on each room, because they don't even collaborate together because they only want to make their own money in hospitals. But in general, that change has, I think it's only 10 years to the 15 years that there's an awareness about that you shouldn't be a specialist. If you ask a doctor to look in a hole and you don't say the size, he can look in a pori, but he can also look in your ass or somewhere else. And if he doesn't know where he looks, he just sees a hole. So that's why you need a generalist.
Thank you.
Would you recommend to young design graduate to stay in Eindhoven? Or
yeah, I think when I stayed, Eindhoven was not so nice, as like not a city which was vibrant. It was not happening a lot. So now that changed because everything changed. But the disadvantage is that it's full. So you have a nicer environment in terms of the possibilities socially and together. I think the network is bigger. There's more people who are with the same ideas, and there's more places you meet each other. So that's an improvement, and it's harder to find a place.
Yeah, so actually,
but that's the government who should change that.
Yeah, so the environment actually in itself is better.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, the call on the space that we have is tighter, and therefore that part is more difficult. Yeah.
The first anecdote you told about this article you wrote about Eindhoven for this painting company in Gelderop. Was it? Did it get published?
No, they didn't. So I asked them several times, "Are you going to publish it?" And then they read it and said, "No, we're not going to publish it." Good question.
Thank you.
What do you think? Because the article then was about, okay, we should really demolish something to make space, to create something more beautiful, more worthwhile. If you now look at Eindhoven, because one of the main questions of the city vision is also what can we do better? What should we leave behind? If you now look at Eindhoven, where do you see the most possibilities if you could demolish something?
No, it's still the ring. So if you look at the ring with all the buildings, it's still like that. They were big with glass, and then on the corner they made a sort of classic round with some pillars and glass and shiny. If you take this in your mind, you ride, you take a drive around the ring.
Do a whole tour.
Yeah, you can destroy half of it, no problem.
Are there more questions?
Yeah, when you mentioned Eindhoven, about what should you demolish, I think one of the biggest problems that I see in the city is sort of there is a lot of nice aesthetics and it looks great and all that, but there is an inherent lack of culture, sort of like the street and like normal people culture. It sort of doesn't show that actual people and humans live in those places. How do you think you can not necessarily fix that, but sort of put the city in a trajectory where at least in the future it might have something similar to that?
You mean the people actually living in Eindhoven?
So to
So
showcase...
I think Eindhoven is actually. I'm not so proud about anything, but I'm rather proud about Eindhoven if you look at the housing for normal people. So if you Woensel, I think I love Woensel, not because it's not, but I like when it's rough and when it's not arranged and so on. But
So
if
we're
you
going to
look-
ask not the lawyers to move there, but
let's see. You'll see that it will change.
it's going to happen.
It will happen for sure. But if you look at Woensel and also to the neighborhoods which are renovated, I think it's a very it's a big success. If you look at the people there and how they live, and the houses are really like human, and there's much more space, and there's an equal amount of people living there, and the new areas are also with the boutiques and so on, with the stores, they are actually not getting bankrupt all the time, which is in other parts of the city a problem. So I think which was the developer?
Trudeau
did. I think they did. For me, it's an example. And now, if you look at the Philips Stadium, the green area where where it's empty in front of the Philips Stadium, they're going to make there affordable housing, like in the middle of Eindhoven. So I think in general, Eindhoven, if you compare it to other big cities, they really choose for a mix of people where possible, which is normal, but it's not everywhere normal. So I think we should be lucky, only we should do more.
So if you talk about something we should definitely continue, it's, I think, this tradition that also Philips created to give big backyards, to give quite big houses to families to go here, to be healthy. And now also that we're still creating space for, well, people in spots that normally wouldn't get that spots. That's a tradition that you're actually saying that we should keep on and try to even widen up.
It's part of the quality of,
Yeah.
maybe much more important than what you, if you, I come from Amsterdam, so I can be rude. But if you look at Amsterdam, and I know a lot of people still who live there, and most of them moved because in the end there are no Amsterdammers anymore living in Amsterdam, and it's only about who has even more money. So in the end, it's only rich people living in the center, and the center grows and grows and grows, which is for a city, I think it's killing.
Don't come like Amsterdam. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds very nice, very social, very beautiful. But my question is, okay, how practically you determine who are these people? Or these people who cannot afford or who will get there or that? It's, yeah, how you determine who are these people?
No, I don't think it's like that. It's if you have a certain income, and you can't. Actually, in Eindhoven at the moment, there's just not enough housing. So that's a general problem. It's not only the poor. So it's not a problem to solve only on one aspect. So you have to build or create space for those people, for everybody. In the end, and I don't think it's that difficult, because what I say, if you just change your plans and add something where it's normally not added, you get the space for much less. So like we bought the place and we got and the reason why we were able to do it, because the government actually helped us to get through all the procedures, but they didn't give money. So in the end, I think it's if you want to make something happen and you have a strong government, then you can also make it happen because you have the buttons to turn. But I don't know. I think in general it's people have a certain income, and with a certain income you cannot or can buy a house or can rent or cannot rent a house. And then in the end you just don't have enough housing. That's also a problem, or a bigger problem.
Earlier you talked about that there should be a balance in a sort of a demography. So I think that's really important as well for a city. But I have actually another question. If you may make a wish for Eindhoven, what should be here in 5 years?
Let's make it 10. Let's be more idealistic. What should be here in 10? We have space, we have time. What should we do?
I'm rather satisfied with Eindhoven actually. So it's
That's also nice. That's
I'm
also
critical, but I like living here. So
is it maybe because?
no, I think it's not going so bad. But what I think would be very nice, and I think we're on the edge of making this happen, is that we also ask like really good architects, and like if you make a building from like I don't know how high, and it costs like 40 million. Why not spend 2 million extra and ask best architect in the world? And I think it's for Eindhoven would be good to sort of don't think it's not good enough, but just make it, because in the end it gives a quality to a city to not be like not think small but think big.
And can I then fill in that the architects and city planners also should have a quality of a generalist, that they can also oversee different areas, or are you more, do you want them to be more specialized in what they are good at, as also happens here in the city?
I think the mayor should be the biggest generalist, and then you have a big layer of also generalist, and then another layer of generalist, and then you have a few specialists.
Okay.
So I think that would be the best.
Okay. Then I think this is a really good remark to end with. Then my question to you all is, where would you place yourself between being a generalist and being very specific? And then I would very much like to welcome you to have an after talk and some drinks at the bar. And then I hope to see you again also next week at the last Innovation Café of this year. Really thank you for being here. And Piet, very much thank you for talking about the topic that you don't feel you should be talking about, but I thought it was really inspiring.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.